Hello, everyone. Welcome to Self Knowledge. Today we have the topic or the fourth topic of the Self Knowledge course, the seven centers of the human machine. Let me check if this is going up correctly. Yes. And well, in this interesting topic, we are going to be talking about the seven energetic centers that we have, that we possess internally. We are going to know how they work, what energy they consume, where they are located in our physical body, and we are going to learn about the possibilities that we have as human beings to develop these centers, to balance them as they are currently unbalanced, and to regenerate them. Also, we are going to know which function each of these centers fulfill in us, what is their activity in or during our daily living, and the most important thing, we're going to know how we can save our energy, since we're going to see how it's precisely the misuse that we make of our energy which doesn't allow us to develop the centers, to develop spiritually, nor does it allow us to be successful in certain practices such as the astral unfolding, because we have no energy, and nor does it allow us to develop our internal bodies to have a presence in the different dimensions of nature. So let's see what are these energy centers that we all have and how to balance them. These centers are energy points that allow us to develop various functions on our physical body. We have seven energy centers, and it is important to clarify that when we talk about centers, we refer to something that belongs to the physical world and therefore to our physical body. Remember that we are made up of three parts: matter, energy, and consciousness. That is, we have a physical body, which is our matter, we have a soul, which is our energy, and we have a spirit, which is our consciousness. And I clarify this so that we differentiate these energetic centers from the chakras, since although the centers, the chakras, and the churches of wisdom are intimately related, the chakras belong to the soul, the churches of wisdom belongs to the spirit, while the centers belong to the physical body. So these seven centers are located along our spine in our physical body. But let's explain each center in detail so you get to know each one of them. Because we have seven of them, they are the sexual center, the instinctive center, the emotional or lower emotional center, the lower intellectual center, also the motor center here at this point, the superior emotional center here in the pituitary gland, and we have the superior intellectual center here in the pineal gland. And well, the first one is the sexual center, and it's located at the level of the coccyx, which is the lowest bone in our spine. The energy that manages the center is our sexual energy, and its function is to create, since our sexual energy is creative. And this center has three possibilities of creation, as we can create through supersex, through normal sex, or through infrasex. This means that every time we practice sex and this center goes into activity, we are actually creating. If we practice supersex, which is the practice of superior sex that we already taught in topic number 1, that is here in the page in case anyone didn't have the opportunity to watch it, is 1A. And well, when practicing supersex, we don't spill our sexual energy through orgasm and ejaculation, but rather we channel it through our spine. And with this kind of sex, we create. And we create what we can call the children of light, that is the creation of the existential bodies of the being, which are the internal bodies that will allow us to have a conscious presence in the different dimensions of nature. On the other hand, if we practice normal sex, and this is practicing sexuality also without spilling the sexual energy, that is, without ever reaching fornication, but with the intention of having a child. And in this practice, known as normal sex, only one sperm, the strongest one, will be directed by the Divine Mother to fertilize the egg without the need to waste all the millions of sperm contained in the semen. And by doing this practice, we will be creating a physical child, so we will be reproducing the species. But if we practice infrasex, which is having sex without a transcendental purpose, and we spill our sexual energy through orgasm or ejaculation, we are going to create within us the ego, more and more of those ways of being or psychological defects that has trapped and conditioned our consciousness. So it is important to know that when what we know as the original sin occurred and man was expelled from paradise, which are actually higher levels of consciousness, the original sin was none other than fornication or the spilling of sexual energy. And as a result of this, the human being created the seven deadly sins, which are lust, anger, greed, pride, gluttony, laziness, envy, and all the details that make up each of these that is our ego. And likewise, every time we expel our sexual energy from our body, we are creating more and more details of those seven like heads of legion, and therefore we are conditioning our consciousness more and more. That is the reason why it is supremely important for us to start practicing the suprasexuality, to stop creating ego and to start creating ourselves internally. So we can create internally, our solar astral body, our solar mental body, our solar causal body, etc. And the sense related to this center, as every center has like one of the senses that manage this center, and the sense related to this center is the touch. Since it's through touch, that is kisses and caresses, that sexual potency is activated for the practice of suprasex, so we get to create. And the defect that manages this center, as every center has like their or let's say that these seven deadly sins has each one of them a seat on one of our centers, and the defect that has its seat on the sexual center is laziness, as this is the one who doesn't allow or doesn't allow any creation to be achieved in us, since it is because of laziness that we never decide to start our inner work and to achieve self-realization. The second center is the instinctive center, and it is located at the level of the sacrum in our spine. And the energy that manages this center is the vital energy. And this center is in charge of managing all the waters inside us. And for that reason, this center manages the physical body's health and the reproduction of all of our cells. And this center has two functions, a mechanical one and a conscious one. And its mechanical function is to learn, and learn through desire and repetition. So once we desire something, we want to taste it. And once we have tried it, we learned it because it remains engraved in the memory of our waters. And every time that we are faced again with the same situation, we are going to feel the same desire and we will want to repeat it over and over again. That is the mechanical function of the center. And the sense that is related to the center is the sense of taste. Because, yes, every time we feel a desire of something, we want to taste it. And the defect related to the center is the defect of greed. Because once we have tried something and we like it, we always want more and more. And as I was saying, it has two functions. The learning is the mechanical one, and the conscious function of this center is to apprehend. That is to capture the deep meaning of any situation that we experience, but without keeping that in the memory, as it is captured by our consciousness. And this way, we will be acting by knowing from our consciousness and not by remembering. So we must develop that conscious function of this instinctive center. And this center also manages all the metallic atoms of our mercury, and inside them is contained our ego, and it also manages the karma. And that is why most of our karmic debts are paid with the loss of our vitality. That is with different diseases. And well, the third center is the lower emotional one. And it is located at the height of the navel, upon the spine. And the energy that manages the center is our emotional energy. You see that we feel the emotions like there in this area. And its function is to feel positive and negative emotions. And positive emotions are the ones that are originated by our consciousness, like the desire of helping others and the true love, which is a superior emotion, not related to sentimentality or attachments. And the negative emotions are those emotions that make us feel pain or pleasure, attraction or rejection. With negative emotions is with what we commonly fall in love. We feel pleasure, we feel joy, but on the other like extreme, we feel hatred, we feel resentment, etc. And we must learn to balance the center because it's the one that manages our internal fire. And the fire in us is the encouragement that we use to perform all our actions. So if we don't learn to consciously manage this center, we will always continue to waste all of our emotional energy in those emotions that constantly take us, like this, from pleasure to pain, and we will not have the encouragement for doing the practices that will allow us to awaken our consciousness. And well, the sense related to the center is the sense of the smell, as smelling activates the emotion. And you can see how it is also through slow, deep breathing that we calm down when we are emotionally agitated. And well, the defect that manages the center is lost, since it is our loss that drives all the time our internal fire and make us feel that characteristic emotional burning. And well, the fourth center is the lower intellectual center, and it is located at the height of the heart upon the spine. And the energy that manages this center is the mental energy, and its function is to think, to devise, to plan, to project, to remember. You see that before doing anything, we first plan it. That is why it is said that thoughts are the origin of deeds. So when we think, even though we don't know it, we are starting to create. Thus, the quality of our deeds is determined by the quality of our thoughts. So we need to learn to self-observe the center, and each thought should pass through a filter of reflection that allow us to judge the usefulness of such a thought and decide if it is really necessary to let it use our available mental energy. As if we don't observe our mind, we just let it talk the whole day like a parrot, and it is going to be spending a lot of energy, as it always do. And actually, the best way to think is not to think, it's not thinking, and knowing to listen the voice of the heart. As when we manage to silence our mind, to not to think, the wisdom of our Father can come to our heart as intuition, which is pure wisdom. And well, the sense that manages the center is hearing, and the defect is pride, as we are constantly hearing our own thoughts full of pride. We are always, the heroes of our mental movies with all our self sympathy, our self consideration, our self importance. And as you can see, the more you think, the less humble you are. And it is important for us to start eliminating all those concepts that fragment our mind and begin to achieve mental silence so that consciousness can start manifesting itself through the intuition in our heart. And well, the fifth center is the motor one. And it is located at the height of the larynx, but up on the spine, and it manages the motive energy. As it is the center of the motion. It oversees all our actions and our words. And when handled by our ego, this center is completely mechanical. You see that we are like zombies. This center learns to do something, and it like perfectionates the movement until the thinking process doesn't participate at all. As we learn to brush our teeth, or we learn to walk, or we learn to drive, and we already do it without consciousness participating at all. We do it mechanically, thinking and feeling anything else while doing that, while the body is like mechanically performing the action. That is why we are like machines. We are human machines, because our psychological defects actually manages this machine, and the consciousness is not participating at all. And moreover, if we get to think when this center is operating, we could even die. For example, when we are driving. So if we are like mechanical driving and we get to think about driving, we can easily have an accident. That mechanical we are. And well, the function of this center is to do. This center handles on the wheel, and it is managed commonly by our psychological defects, and all our deeds are influenced by them. So we see that we have goodwill for the ego's words, actions, and omissions. We have goodwill for vices, for parties, for fights, for fornication, for laziness, etc. And we have very, very bad will for the things of consciousness, for meditating, reflecting, eliminating our defects, for being born spiritually, for sacrificing ourselves for humanity, etc. Unfortunately, what us human beings do the most is to speak any kind of foolishness, and almost never we say or we do useful things. And the sense related to the center is sight, and the defect related to the center is anger. And well, those were the first 5 centers, and they are the centers that are fallen in us, that are unbalanced. And it is because they are constantly used by our ego to manifest and to feed on our energies. Because every time our ego manifests, it comes to feed on our energy and get stronger. you see that when the anger manifests, you can see how it spill a lot of emotional energy by feeling, I don't know, hatred, or by feeling impatience or anxiety, and it spill a lot of mental energy by thinking, angry things, by having angry thoughts. And if we get to let the anger manifest in our words or our actions, then you spill a lot of energy. You get to harm others, to harm yourself. And what? The anger is going to grow every time more. Every time you let it manifest, it is going to grow more and more, and you are going to be a more angry person. The same with any defects. For example, the sadness. If you let your sadness manifest, yes, it is feeding on your energy, on your emotional energy, on your mental energy, on your every one of your energies, and it is getting stronger. It is your sadness is getting bigger, so you are becoming a sadder person, and even a depressed person. And well, those are the first five centers that are fallen and imbalanced, but we have two centers that are not fallen and that work in balance. And they are our two higher centers that by activating them will allow us to self-observe, to judge ourselves, and to make radical changes within us and access our own inner wisdom. And the first of those is the superior emotional center. It is located at the pituitary gland or hypophysis. The energy that it manages is the energy of the consciousness. The function of this center is to judge, to measure effects. And the sense related to the center is the sense of the self-observation or the clairvoyance. And in most human beings, the sense of self-observation is stunted by lack of use, because we have become accustomed to directing our attention outwards. We look at others and we judge what others do. And we always look for external culprits for the things that happen to us internally. And we never stop to look at our interior and to look for the internal causes of our ills where they are in our interior. So when we start to regenerating this sense, this center, I mean not regenerating, when we start using this center and this sense of self-observation, this third eye, start regenerating. And for this, we have to start directing our attention using this third eye, but to the interior, towards our inner world, to discover all the psychological defects that we have and that constantly manifest in us, and that are the real cause of all of our conflicts and of all of our wrong reactions, and start judging ourselves ruthlessly. And in this way, we'll be able to realize that if we get angry, it's not because someone makes us angry, but because inside us lives the defect of anger, and that it is well fed. That if I am sexually aroused, it is not because someone provokes me, but because inside me there are many defects of loss that if they didn't exist within me, no one could get me out of my correct inner state. And as we begin to observe and to discover and to eliminate all these defects that we have in our interior, we will discover the secret by which by which sages and beings of awakened consciousness are invulnerable to the things that enslave us. And well, That is something that we need to practice so we can actually comprehend. And well, the defect that is related to this center is the defect of gluttony, as gluttony represents our imbalance, the tendency to always go to extremes that doesn't allow us to stay focused. And well, the last center is the superior intellectual center, which is located in the pineal gland, and it manages the energy of the pure spirit, and its function is to know, as here is the seat of our inner father, which is the force of wisdom of our consciousness. And the sense related to the centers is the polyvoyance. This is the knowledge of everything, and the defect related to the center is envy. And well, now that we have seen these 7 centers and their functions, let's talk a little about the current state of these centers. Because actually, in all human beings, these centers are unbalanced, because almost nobody is truly interested in working on themselves, and almost the totality of a human being doesn't know themselves, doesn't even observe themselves, doesn't discover all the psychological defects that are all the whole day acting through their centers and feeding off their energy. And for this reason, we must start to work first by knowing the centers, as we are doing today, and to stop wasting our energy. And we do that by eliminating all these defects that constantly steal our energy. And we begin to use this energy that we are saving to make superior creations in us. The instinctive center is an energy producer. It provides energy to all the lower centers, and overnight, while our physical body rests, this center, the instinctive one, provides each of the lower centers with the necessary quota of energy to function during the next day. And the surplus energy, the greatest amount of energy, is deposited in the sexual center, as it has the most important function. And what happens that at the beginning of the day, each one of us starts with full bodies. And what happens that we begin to expand all our energy every time we use the center. We misuse the center. Every time we let our psychological defects to manage the center instead of our consciousness. When our consciousness is using our center, when we are in concentration, in self-observation, and it's our consciousness that is managing and using the center, it's our consciousness that is feeling, it's our consciousness that is thinking, it's our consciousness that is acting, that is talking, well, we are not misusing our energy, actually. But when we let our psychological defects to manifest, they all the time come to feed on our energy, and they misuse the energy. So we start from the very time we wake up to waste our energy. And as we are not in self-observation and practicing the psychological death from moment to moment, when we start to think as we do, and we start thinking all kinds of useless and redundant thoughts, this battery start lowering. And we spend the whole day a lot of motor energy by speaking all kinds of unnecessary words, and thus all the energy of our centers. When we arrive at noon, we have already exhausted the energy of each of our centers, and for that reason we feel tired and we feel the need to take a nap. And as we need to continue functioning, what the centers do is that they steal energy from the sexual center. And when the sexual center needs to work to practice sex, it only has the leftover energy from the other centers since it was like previously looted by all the centers during the day. And to make the situation worse, very few humans know about suprasexuality, and when they practice sex, they actually make efforts to extract the energy through the orgasm and the ejaculation, and there all the energetic reserves are extracted just to entertain ourselves. And with this constant mismanagement of our energy centers are completely unbalanced. And in this way, we never have the energy, the necessary energy to, for example, unfold ourselves astrally. We go to bed and we want to achieve the practice, but we all the time keep like poof, going to sleep, falling asleep. We don't have the energy. And when we try to make the suprasex and we want to start creating our existential bodies of the being, or those vehicles that will allow us to have a permanent and consciousness presence in the higher dimensions of nature, we cannot do it because we don't have enough energy, and we don't have like the purity in the energy that we need to make those creations. So let's see the most important part. What can we do to balance the centers? If we are going to balance the centers, we need to start observing them first. And then we need to learn how to save energy so that the sexual center is not looted anymore. So what we need to do is to start to awake the third eye or the self-observation sense by at all times directing our attentions to our interior to discover all those defects that want to manifest through our centers. We will discover them by passing all our words, all our actions, all our thoughts and emotions through a filter of righteousness, reflecting if what we are thinking, if what we are feeling, if what we are doing or saying is actually true, is fair, or is useful or beneficial, but to our being, to our consciousness, or if it is just a manifestation of one of our psychological defects, and if it is so, it must die. So we just must ask our Divine Mother, which is the part of love of our consciousness, to eliminate that psychological defect. So, to balance the centers, we must start practicing the four rights: the right thinking, right feeling, right action, and right talking. And what is the right thinking? When I start thinking on something, I actually must reflect if that thought is from my being or if it is from a defect. If I see that is, for example, a thought of worry or of criticism or gossipy or lust, because I am thinking on lustful things, and I understand it is a defect, I must ask my consciousness to eliminate it by mentally asking Divine Mother, eliminate this defect. Then I go back to self-observation, to this inner silence. And the same with the feelings, with the words, with the actions. So what is the right feeling? If I observe that in my emotional center something is moving, I must reflect what is that? So if it is worry that I'm feeling, or if it is anxiety, or if it is fear or anger or sadness, I know that this feeling is not from my being. It is from a defect, so it must die. So whatever I'm feeling that is from a defect, I'm going to ask my Divine Mother to eliminate that and return to my self-observation state. And what is the right action? What am I doing? This mechanically or mechanical acting is from my being or is from a defect. If it is from a defect, that defect must die. What is the right talking? What am I saying? If what I'm saying is not true, it's not fair, it's not useful, so it is from a defect and it must die. So the right thinking is not thinking and listening to the voice of the heart, which is the intuition, the wisdom that comes from our Father. The right feeling is not letting our emotions go all the time from pleasure to pain, but to develop the balance. And the right action is doing things concentrated, because the opposite is the mechanicalness. And the right speaking, the right talking, is to silence when when what you have to say is not fair, useful, or true. And when practicing this strategy, these four rights, we will start to save energy, and this will allow us that by using wisely our sexual like intercourse with our partner, and using wisely our sexual energy to create the superior bodies of the being that will allow us to have full representation in every dimension. Because with the suprasexuality, we are going to regenerate this physical body that is actually degenerated. That is why we are constantly having many diseases. We are going to regenerate our vital body, that yes, we have it, but it's in a lunar state. We are going to create our solar astral body, because we only have now an embryo of our astral body, and we need to develop the full body so we can have conscious and permanent presence in the astral world, which is like the lowest part of the fifth dimension. And we are also going to create the mental body that will allow us to have a permanent presence in the upper fifth dimension, which is the mental world. We are going to create a causal body that is related to this center. And with that body, we are going to have a solar wheel, and we are going to have a presence in the lower sixth dimension, which is the causal world. And with that, we are going to be able to join our buddhic and atmic bodies that are already fully created, but that we are like disconnected from them. We are going to be talking about the seven bodies and their characteristics in the topic number 10. And next Friday, that we are going to see the topic number 5 and 6, both in one. We are going to be talking about the dimensions and where they are in us. We are going to be talking about the different dimensions of nature, and we are going to see that as within, so without, and as without, so within. So as there are dimensions in the exterior, we also have our internal dimensions, and when we learn to rule our inner dimensions, we get to rule the external dimensions. So we are going to be talking the next Friday at the same time about that interesting topic. And well, this has been today's topic. Thank you to all who watched the video. And well, I want to say hi to Christina and to Angelica. Thank you girls for being here. And well, this is all for today. Thank you very much. Have a great night and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.